The massive alien ship appeared without warning. One moment Earth's deep space sensors showed nothing unusual, and the next, a vessel larger than anything humans had ever built hung silently above the North Atlantic. Global panic lasted exactly 12 hours before the aliens made their first transmission. "We come in peace," said the tall, blue-skinned creature on screens worldwide. Its voice was calm and melodic through the translation system. "We are the Xelarians, representatives of the Galactic Federation. We wish to welcome humanity to the interstellar community." 3 weeks later, Lieutenant John Carter stood in front of his locker at the International Space Command Center, hardly believing he'd been selected for humanity's first diplomatic mission. At 32, with 10 years of Navy service, he was considered level-headed under pressure. That's what his commanders told him when they picked him. "Still can't believe we're going up there," said Lisa Miller, appearing beside him. As Earth's leading military strategist, the 40-year-old woman had helped design defense protocols that would never be needed now that aliens came peacefully. Her short gray-streaked hair and intense eyes gave her an intimidating presence. "Maybe they'll have better coffee than the Navy," John replied, trying to hide his nervousness. Alan Wright joined them, carrying his scientific equipment. The bearded xenobiologist had spent his entire career theorizing about alien life. Now he would finally see it firsthand. "They're calling the ship Celestial Harmony. Apparently, it's just a diplomatic vessel, not even one of their larger ships." The 3 of them, along with 12 other specialists, boarded the shuttle that would take them to the alien ship. The trip was short, the docking procedure flawless. When the airlock opened, they got their first close look at the Xelarians. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, with 4-fingered hands and skin in various shades of blue, the aliens moved with surprising grace. Their ambassador, who introduced himself as Kelnav, bowed slightly. "Welcome aboard the Celestial Harmony," he said. "We are pleased to begin formal relations with humanity." The diplomatic quarters assigned to the humans were comfortable, if strange. Everything was slightly too tall, the beds too narrow. During the first official meeting, the humans learned that the Federation consisted of 27 spacefaring civilizations, each with specific roles in galactic society. "Your species shows remarkable potential," Kelnav explained during the 3rd day of talks. "But all new members must undergo evaluation before being granted membership." John noticed something odd during these meetings. Despite their technological advantage, the Xelarians seemed nervous around humans. They maintained careful distance, especially when any human moved suddenly. "They're afraid of us," Lisa whispered to John during a break. "But why would an advanced civilization fear us?" The answer began to emerge during a tour of the ship's training facilities. When John asked about combat preparation, the Xelarian guide visibly stiffened. "We prefer diplomatic solutions," the guide said quickly. "Our peacekeepers are trained in containment and defensive measures only." Later that week, a Federation security officer named Vortek accidentally witnessed John's daily exercise routine. The alien seemed transfixed by John's pull-ups and sparring practice with Lisa. "Your bodies," Vortek said, mandibles twitching in what they'd learned was anxiety. "They are built for sustained combat." John shrugged. "Just staying fit. Standard military training." That evening, the humans noticed increased scanner activity in their quarters. Federation officials began asking detailed questions about human military history, pain responses, and endurance capabilities. "They're not evaluating us for membership," Alan concluded after comparing notes with the others. "They're assessing if we're dangerous." When John brought this up diplomatically with Kelnav, the alien ambassador's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. "Forgive our curiosity, Lieutenant Carter," he said softly. "It's just that in our long history exploring the galaxy, we've never encountered a species quite like yours before." John didn't understand what made humans so special, but watching the nervous movements of their hosts, he began to wonder what would happen when the Federation discovered exactly what humans were capable of when pushed into a corner. 6 months after first contact, Earth welcomed alien visitors for the first official cultural exchange program. A former national park in Colorado became home to representatives from 3 Federation species. The diplomatic compound bustled with activity as humans and aliens attempted to understand each other. Karen Davis supervised security for the Earth delegation. At 45, the former Army officer had sharp eyes that missed nothing. She watched as Federation anthropologist Zex Tra, a tall insectoid with iridescent wing casings, documented everything from human food preparation to exercise routines. "Your species is remarkably adaptable," Zex Tra said to Karen one evening. The alien's translator rendered its clicking speech into smooth English. Most Federation members evolve for specific environments and develop technology to compensate for biological limitations. Humans instead adapted their bodies to overcome nearly any challenge. Karen shrugged. "We're stubborn, I guess." Early misunderstandings quickly piled up. When Federation delegates attended a baseball game, they were confused by the crowd's enthusiasm for what they called ritualized combat with primitive weapons. Their confusion only deepened when Karen explained that baseball was considered one of the less aggressive human sports. "Perhaps we could view your combat training facilities," Zex Tra asked one morning, "for cultural understanding." Karen received clearance to bring the alien delegates to a local gym where off-duty military personnel trained. The visit started well. The aliens observed weight training with scientific interest, taking careful readings of muscle density and oxygen consumption. Then 2 Marines began sparring. The humans thought nothing of the practice match, but when the first punch landed, the Federation delegates reacted with horror. One of the Xilarians hurried from the room. Another, a jellyfish-like Medusian, changed colors rapidly in what they later learned was extreme distress. "They are damaging each other for improvement." Zex Tra's voice trembled. Voluntarily. Karen tried to explain. "It's controlled. They're friends. This helps them prepare for real situations. Real situations would be worse than this." The alien's wings fluttered anxiously. That evening, an emergency meeting convened between human diplomats and Federation representatives. The Federation's chief liaison, a reptilian named Sevnar, seemed unusually tense. "We must request that humans refrain from displaying combat activities during our cultural exchange," he said. "Several of our delegates required medical attention for shock after today's incident." Medical attention? From watching sparring, Alan Wright couldn't hide his surprise. It was just practice. "You deliberately strike to cause pain as a learning method," Sevnar replied. "This concept is deeply disturbing to most Federation species." Later, Karen found Zex Tra in the observation lounge, watching the sunset. The alien's compound eyes reflected the orange light. "I've been studying your entertainment media," Zex Tra said quietly. "Your most celebrated stories involve heroes who endure extreme physical suffering to protect others. Is this truly what humans admire?" Karen considered this. Courage isn't about wanting to suffer. It's about being willing to sacrifice for something important. The Federation abandoned physical combat thousands of years ago, Zex Tra explained. "We evolved past it, or so we believed. Today I wonder if we lost something valuable in the process." The next morning, a new Federation directive arrived. All human combat demonstrations were temporarily restricted during diplomatic exchanges. Additionally, the Federation requested detailed information about human pain thresholds, endurance limits, and recovery rates. "They're studying us like we're some kind of dangerous animal," Lisa Miller said when she heard about the directive. John Carter nodded slowly. "Maybe to them, that's exactly what we are." The cultural exchange continued, but with new boundaries. Humans avoided showing anything that might upset their guests. The aliens continued their studies, always watching, always measuring. Neither side fully understood the other, but one thing became increasingly clear. The Federation feared something about humanity. Something humans took for granted about themselves caused profound unease among the galaxy's older civilizations. It would take a crisis to reveal why. The alert came during a routine diplomatic briefing. The Federation science vessel Truth Seeker had sent a distress signal from the Rigel system before all communications stopped. Federation officials grew pale as they shared the news with their human counterparts. The ship was conducting atmospheric studies, explained Sevnar, his scaled skin shifting to a dull gray. We believe it was attacked by the Draxis Collective. Who are they? Asked John Carter. Pirates, essentially, said Kelnav. A collection of outcasts from various systems who reject Federation law. They operate beyond our borders. Scans revealed the Truth Seeker had been boarded and towed toward a small moon in the Rigel system. Most concerning was the passenger list. Among the 23 scientists aboard was Zex Tri, the anthropologist who had spent months studying humans. We're assembling a diplomatic team to negotiate their release, Sevnar announced. The Federation does not engage in armed conflict. Commander Susan Jackson, recently appointed head of Earth's Union Space Force, leaned forward. At 50, with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair, she commanded respect without raising her voice. You're just going to talk to them. After they attacked your ship. We will follow Federation protocols, Kelnav said firmly. Negotiation is always our first response. And if negotiation fails? Susan asked. The Federation representatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Our peacekeepers will attempt containment measures, Sevnar finally replied. With minimal force. Susan looked at John Carter and Lisa Miller, who had both attended the briefing. Their expressions matched her own doubt. We'd like to offer assistance, Susan said. Zex Tren knows our people. We feel responsible. The Federation officials conferred privately before responding. Finally, Kelnav addressed the humans. We accept your offer of support, but in an observational capacity only. You must follow our protocols. The Federation has strict rules about engagement with hostile forces. 3 days later, a small human team boarded the Federation diplomatic vessel, Harmony Bringer. The team included John Carter, Lisa Miller, and Paul Martinez, a tactical specialist with 15 years of experience in hostage situations. Paul was compact and quiet, with watchful eyes and steady hands. He studied the Federation peacekeepers with professional interest. They're carrying containment equipment, he noted. No actual weapons. The Harmony Bringer approached the Rigel system cautiously. Scans showed the Truth Seeker held in a crude dock on the small moon's surface. A Draxis vessel twice its size hovered nearby. After establishing communication, the Draxis leader appeared on screen. A hulking reptilian creature with cybernetic implants. He laughed at the Federation's diplomatic approach. We know Federation protocol, he growled. You'll offer resources. We'll make impossible demands. You'll concede something. We've played this game before. The Federation negotiator tried anyway. Hours passed in fruitless discussion, while the humans watched with growing frustration. Federation sensors detected movement on the moon's surface. Images showed the scientists being moved from the ship to a crude facility. Some appeared injured. They're separating the hostages, Paul said quietly. Standard tactic to prevent rescue. The Federation commander, a tall Solarian named Veltor, called for an analysis. His staff presented options, all with high probability of hostage casualties. Is this truly the best you can do? Lisa Miller finally asked. Our peacekeepers are not designed for offensive action, Veltor admitted. The projected casualty rate is regrettable. John Carter stepped forward. We have experience with situations like this. We might have an alternative approach. A human approach. Veltor's inner eyelids flickered with concern. Yes, John said simply. A human approach. The Federation commander hesitated. Federation protocols strictly limited intervention options, but the analysis showed little hope for the hostages otherwise. Present your plan, Veltor finally said. The Federation Council has authorized limited flexibility given the circumstances. The humans exchanged glances. They had been waiting for this moment. the first real test of what humans could offer the galaxy. None of them realized they were about to change galactic law forever. The Federation Command Center aboard the Harmony Bringer fell silent as Paul Martinez finished explaining the human rescue plan. The Federation officers stared at the tactical display with expressions ranging from confusion to horror. "This cannot be serious," said Veltor finally. "You propose to send 3 humans against 27 Draxis raiders." "3 is enough," Hall replied calmly. "More would be noticed." Lisa Miller pointed to the holographic map. "We don't need to defeat all of them. We just need to create confusion, secure the hostages, and extract them to this landing point." The Federation security chief, a tall Medusian whose translucent body pulsed with light patterns, spoke up. "Our analysis indicates that even our best peacekeeping team of 15 would have a 70% casualty rate. How can 3 humans succeed?" John Carter stepped forward. "Because we fight differently than you do." After hours of debate, the Federation commanders reluctantly approved the plan. They had tried 3 more diplomatic approaches, all rejected by the Draxis. Scans showed 2 of the hostages had already been injured. "We have no choice," Veltor admitted. "But you must wear monitoring devices so we can observe." The humans agreed. As they prepared their equipment in the shuttle bay, Federation medical officers fitted them with small sensors that would transmit vital signs and video feeds. "They think we're going to die," Paul said quietly as he checked his gear. Lisa nodded. "Let's prove them wrong." The Federation provided them with standard-issue containment tools, stun devices that the humans found awkwardly designed and weak. Paul examined one and set it aside. "We'll use our own methods," he said. A small Federation shuttle dropped them on the dark side of the moon, 5 miles from the Draxis base. The landscape was barren rock under a star-filled sky. The humans moved quickly despite the low gravity, covering ground in a steady rhythm that surprised the watching Federation officers. "Their endurance is remarkable," noted a Federation scientist, watching the feed. "They've maintained this pace for 40 minutes without rest." At the perimeter of the Draxis base, the humans split up. Lissa positioned herself on a ridge with clear sightlines to the main facility. John circled toward the makeshift prison, where scans showed the hostages were held. Paul disappeared into the shadows near the Draxis ship. The Federation observers watched in confusion. What are they doing? They have no coordination. But they were wrong. The humans moved with perfect understanding of each other's roles, something they had trained for over years of working together. Paul struck first. A series of small devices placed strategically around the Draxis ship suddenly activated, creating multiple alarms and false readings on their systems. Half the guards rushed to investigate. John used the distraction to approach the prison building. When 2 guards blocked his path, the Federation observers gasped at what happened next. Instead of using the containment tools, John engaged them directly. His movements were precise, efficient, and shockingly violent by Federation standards. "He's deliberately causing pain," whispered a horrified Federation officer. "He's neutralizing threats while minimizing noise," corrected Commander Susan Jackson, who had remained on the Federation ship. "Watch and learn." Lisa provided cover, using simple tools in ways the Federation had never considered, creating distractions that drew guards away from John's position. Inside the prison building, John found the hostages. Zextra's wings fluttered in surprise when she saw him. "How did you get past the guards?" she asked. "Don't worry about that," John replied. "We're getting you out of here." When another Draxis guard discovered them, the scientists watched in astonishment as John handled the threat. One of the Xilarian scientists fainted at the display of human combat efficiency. "Federation forces would have negotiated," Zextra said, mandibles clicking rapidly. "You just acted." "Talking has its place," John replied as he guided them toward the exit. "But sometimes you have to fight." On the Federation ship, the commanders watched in stunned silence. What they were witnessing challenged everything they believed about civilized conflict resolution. And they hadn't seen anything yet. The alarm sounded throughout the Draxis base. The rescue had been discovered. John Carter led the 20 scientists through narrow corridors, moving with a speed that left several of them struggling to keep up. "We need to reach the extraction point," John said, checking a small device on his wrist. "Lisa is clearing the path ahead." 3 Draxus raiders appeared at an intersection, weapons raised. The scientists froze in terror, but John never broke stride. He moved toward the raiders with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for his size. The Federation monitors recorded everything as John disabled all 3 attackers in less than 20 seconds. On the Federation ship, the medical team watching the feeds could hardly believe what they were seeing. "His heart rate is barely elevated," one doctor said, "and he's continuing despite injuries that would incapacitate most species." John had taken a glancing blow to his arm that left a deep cut. He ignored it completely, applying a quick pressure bandage without slowing down. Outside, Paul Martinez created chaos. He had reprogrammed several of the Draxus security systems to work against them, causing doors to lock randomly and communications to fail. The raiders, used to victims who surrendered or negotiated, had no protocol for this type of assault. "They fight like no species we've encountered." The Draxus leader growled into his communicator, "Set explosive traps in Section 4. But Paul had anticipated this. Federation observers watched in amazement as he systematically predicted and countered each Draxus response. Where Federation tactical experts might have spent hours analyzing possibilities, Paul made split-second decisions based on experience and instinct. "It's like he can read their thoughts," whispered a Federation officer. "No," replied Commander Susan. "He just understands how predators think." Lisa Miller had positioned herself on a ridge overlooking the exit route. When a group of Draxus attempted to cut off the escape path, she took action. Using minimal equipment and the terrain to her advantage, she diverted and neutralized threats with an efficiency that the Federation tactical experts found both brilliant and disturbing. "She's not just reacting," one Federation strategist noted. "She's manipulating them, using their own tactics against them." The Federation had always approached conflict with careful planning and overwhelming numbers. Watching 3 humans outmaneuver experienced raiders changed their understanding of what combat could be. John reached a bottleneck in the facility where 7 Draxus blocked the path to freedom. The scientists huddled behind him, terrified. Zextra's wings trembled as she watched John assess the situation. "Stay here," he told them. "When you hear the signal, run straight through to the exit." What happened next would be studied in Federation academies for generations. John engaged all 7 opponents using a combination of the environment, psychology, and physical abilities that the Federation had never seen before. He didn't try to overpower them. He confused them, divided them, and systematically neutralized each threat. The Federation medical team recorded everything. The way John regulated his breathing during combat, how he strategically accepted minor injuries to create openings, his ability to function through pain that would immobilize most sentient beings. When the path was clear, John signaled the scientists. They ran past the defeated raiders, many averting their eyes from the scene. "You fought for us," Zextra said as they reached the exit, "even though you barely know us." John shrugged. "That's what humans do." At the extraction point, Lisa had secured the area while Paul arrived with 6 more scientists he had located in a secondary facility. Together, they guided all 23 Federation citizens to the waiting shuttle. As they lifted off, the Draxus base fell into complete disarray. The raiders had never failed to hold hostages before. They had no contingency for this situation. On the Federation ship, the command crew watched in silence as the shuttle docked. All hostages rescued. Mission successful with minimal casualties. "This changes everything," Veltor said quietly. He was right. The footage from the mission was already being transmitted across Federation networks. Everything they thought they knew about combat was being rewritten by the species they had considered primitive just months before. Humanity had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 month after the Regillian incident, A human delegation arrived at the Federation headquarters on planet Centralis. Admiral Bill Foster led the group, with diplomat Nancy Peterson handling most of the talking. They had been summoned to address what Federation officials now called the human question. The Grand Meeting Hall held representatives from all 27 Federation species. As the humans entered, conversations hushed. Many delegates leaned away slightly, a reaction the humans had grown used to since the rescue mission. "The Federation Council welcomes Earth's representatives," announced the elderly Solarian who served as council leader. "We have convened to discuss the implications of recent events." Nancy stepped forward. At 56, with calm eyes and silver-streaked black hair, she had spent decades in diplomatic service. "We appreciate the invitation," she said. "Humanity is honored to be considered for Federation membership." The council leader's inner eyelids flickered. "That is precisely what we must reconsider." Recordings from the rescue mission played on large screens around the hall. Federation scientists had analyzed every moment of the operation in exhaustive detail. Medical scans, movement patterns, decision-making processes, all were presented to the assembled delegates. A Medusian scientist rose to speak, her translucent body pulsing with nervous light patterns. "Our analysis confirms what many suspected. Humans evolved as persistence predators with unique combat abilities. Their endurance, pain tolerance, and capacity for controlled violence exceed anything in our records." Murmurs spread through the hall. A reptilian delegate stood. "The Federation was founded on principles of peace and cooperation. Violence is considered a primitive trait that advanced species outgrow. Yet humans seem to have refined violence into something more dangerous. We didn't come here to fight," Admiral Foster said firmly. "We came to help." "Perhaps that is what makes you most dangerous," replied a delegate from a crystalline species. "You see violence as a tool, not a failing." The debate continued for hours. Some Federation species argued that humans represented a threat to galactic stability. Others pointed out that the rescue mission had succeeded where Federation methods would have failed. "Look at their psychology," urged a Federation psychiatrist. "Human brain scans during combat show increased focus and problem-solving capability under conditions that would create panic in most species. They don't lose control when fighting. They gain it." Video played of John Carter calmly bandaging his wound while planning his next move. Another clip showed Lisa Miller precisely calculating angles and timing during the operation. "Their entire entertainment culture celebrates those who endure suffering to protect others," noted Zextra, who had been invited to provide cultural context. "What we see is horrifying. They view as admirable." A small avian delegate fluttered nervously. If they fight this effectively with minimal training and basic tools, what might they do with advanced Federation technology? Admiral Foster had heard enough. He stood, his weathered face serious. "Let me be clear, we don't want to fight. Throughout human history, our best people have worked toward peace. But when needed, we will protect ourselves and others who cannot protect themselves." The room fell silent at his direct approach. "You fear what we might do," Nancy added more gently. "But consider instead what we might prevent. The Draxus have attacked 12 Federation vessels in the past year. How many lives might have been saved if you had our help sooner?" The council leader called for a vote. The debate had reached 3 possible outcomes: reject human membership entirely, accept them with significant restrictions, or create a new classification specifically for humanity. After hours of deliberation, the decision was announced. Humans would be classified as a protected martial species, the first in Federation history. This unprecedented step requires careful consideration of integration protocols. The council leader explained. "A special committee will draft the Human Combat Restriction Amendment to Federation law." As they left the chamber, Admiral Foster glanced at Nancy. "So they're writing laws specifically because of us?" "Yes," she replied. "And I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a warning." It was both, though neither human fully understood yet what it would mean for their species and the galaxy. The Federation legal chambers buzzed with activity as representatives from 12 species worked on what many now called the most important document since the Federation Charter itself. For 6 weeks, they had debated every word of the Human Combat Restriction Amendment. Nancy Peterson represented Earth in these discussions, fighting for terms that wouldn't limit human sovereignty. Across the table sat Lorix, a 6-limbed legal expert whose species had helped write the original Federation laws. The amendment must clearly define limits, Lorix insisted, tapping a data pad with 3 hands simultaneously. The Draxus incident demonstrated that unrestricted human combat abilities present a destabilizing factor in galactic relations. Nancy shook her head. We won't accept limitations on our right to self-defense. The discussions grew heated at times. Several Federation species threatened to withdraw from the alliance if humans weren't properly contained. Others argued that human combat skills could benefit the entire galaxy if properly directed. Admiral Foster received regular updates in his temporary quarters on Centralis. The Federation had never before created laws specifically addressing one species' natural abilities. The precedent worried him. They're treating us like we're walking weapons, he told John Carter, who had been invited to provide technical expertise. But they're also fascinated by us. John nodded. Their medical teams have asked for more detailed scans of my adrenal system 3 times this week. The proposed amendment went through 12 major revisions. Each time, Nancy pushed back against restrictions that would prevent humans from protecting themselves or others. After countless arguments, a compromise began to take shape. One morning, the head Federation legal advisor called the drafting committee to order. The final version of the amendment was ready for review. The Human Combat Restriction Amendment officially recognizes humans as Class A combat specialists, he announced. This designation acknowledges their unique evolutionary development and natural combat capabilities. The room fell silent as he continued. Under Federation law, no species may engage in offensive combat operations without Council approval. However, this amendment creates special provisions for human deployment in crisis situations where Federation peacekeepers cannot effectively respond. Nancy studied the text carefully. The amendment didn't forbid humans from fighting entirely. It regulated when and how they could fight. More importantly, it created a framework for using human abilities to protect Federation citizens. In exchange for these special provisions, the legal advisor continued, humans agree to combat restrictions in non-crisis situations and to provide training and consultation to Federation security forces. When the full details were shared with Earth's government, opinions were divided. Some saw the amendment as an insult, treating humans as dangerous creatures who needed to be controlled. Others recognized the unprecedented opportunity it represented. They're offering us advanced technology decades ahead of our own, Admiral Foster explained to a panel of world leaders. Medical systems, energy production, faster than light travel. All they ask is that we help protect the peaceful species who can't protect themselves. The debate continued for weeks. Some Earth nations refused to accept any restrictions on human behavior. Others embraced the role of galactic protectors. In the end, a modified version of the amendment was approved by both Earth and the Federation. Humans would be allowed to join the Federation with a unique status. They would train special Federation security teams, establish response protocols for crisis situations, and receive technological assistance in return. The signing ceremony took place in the Great Hall on Centralis. As Nancy Peterson placed her thumbprint on the document, the Federation Council leader spoke words that would be remembered for generations. Today we acknowledge a difficult truth, he said. Peace is precious because it is fragile. Some threats cannot be reasoned with. The Federation has long avoided violence, but in doing so, we became vulnerable to those who embrace it. He turned to face the human delegation. We forbid humans from fighting not because we fear what they might do, but because we recognize the terrible necessity of what they can do when others cannot. This law does not cage a dangerous animal. It honors a necessary guardian. As Nancy stepped back from the signing table, she finally understood. The restrictions weren't about control. They were about recognition. Humanity had found its place in the stars. 5 years after the signing of the Human Combat Restriction Amendment, the Federation had changed in ways few had predicted. The imposing building that housed the new Human Response Division stood at the center of Centralis, its design reflecting both Earth and Federation architectural styles. Karen Davis, now a Federation admiral, looked out from her office window at the training grounds below. Teams of mixed species worked together under human instructors, learning techniques that blended Federation technology with human tactical thinking. "The quarterly reports are ready for review," said John Carter as he entered her office. Now serving as chief tactical advisor, he had helped design training programs specifically for Federation peacekeepers. "How are the new recruits adapting?" Karen asked. "Better than expected. The Medusians still struggle with direct confrontation, but they've become excellent at distraction tactics. The Accelarians have surprisingly good reaction times when properly trained." A small notification chimed on Karen's desk. The Federation Council was requesting their presence. Together, they walked through the gleaming corridors where humans and aliens worked side by side. In the main operations center, Lisa Miller stood before a massive tactical display. As head of the new Federation Combat Academy, she had revolutionized how the Federation approached crisis response. The Draxis Collective attempted to raid another science outpost near the Epsilon sector. She reported as Karen and John arrived. When they realized a human response team was being deployed, they retreated immediately. Karen nodded. This had become common. In the past 5 years, pirate attacks on Federation vessels had decreased by 70%. The mere knowledge that humans might respond was often enough to prevent conflicts before they began. "The amendment sign is becoming quite effective," John commented. He referred to the warning symbol now displayed on all Federation vessels, a simple icon indicating human security presence that had become the most powerful deterrent in known space. Raiders called it the surrender mark. In the council chamber, representatives from all Federation species gathered to review the 5-year impact of human integration. The data was clear. Conflict zones had stabilized. Trade routes were safer and diplomatic solutions were more effective when backed by human response capabilities. "The amendment has succeeded beyond our expectations," announced the council leader. "What began as a restriction has become a foundation for a safer galaxy." Zextra, now the Federation's leading expert on human culture, presented her findings. Several Federation species have begun studying human traits in hopes of understanding their unique abilities. The Accelarians are particularly interested in human pain management techniques, while the Medusians study human decision-making under pressure. The meeting concluded with approval for expanded human integration across Federation systems. As they left the chamber, Karen found herself walking alongside Paul Martinez, who had just returned from training a new response team. "Did you ever think it would turn out this way?" she asked. "That a law forbidding us from fighting would make us more respected?" Paul smiled slightly. "It's not about fighting. It never was. It's about protecting. The amendment doesn't stop us from doing that. It gives us permission to do it properly." Later that evening, John visited the Memorial Garden where images of Federation citizens saved by human intervention were displayed. Among them were the scientists from the Truth Seeker, including Zextra. That first rescue had changed everything. A young Solarian approached him, looking nervous but determined. "Excuse me, sir. I'm training to join the response division. Could you tell me what makes humans willing to fight for others?" John considered the question carefully. "Fighting isn't what makes us human. Choosing when to fight and why, that's what matters. The amendment doesn't forbid us from fighting. It recognizes that when we do fight, it should be for the right reasons." Across the galaxy, the message was spreading. On distant outposts and trade routes, the symbol indicating human protection had become famous. Pirates and aggressors avoided Federation ships completely rather than risk encountering the species that had earned its own galactic law. The law forbidding humans from fighting had created peace more effectively than any treaty, Because everyone in the galaxy now understood a simple truth. The only thing more dangerous than humans fighting was trying to make them stop when innocent lives were at stake. The amendment hadn't restricted humanity. It had unleashed them as the guardians they were meant to be.